came in.
Okay.
We, signed up. And, it was down. Not so much
5:57.
around.
Wait a minute, I think Preston would probably join. Julia's not gonna be here, but you should pick out Michael with your car, all of these. Share those.
Okay, it is 5:59, so another less than a minute.
Preston, you're all the way upstairs into your attic office.
You speaking to me? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah, I
hopping.
am able to hobble up to my upstairs office, yes. Still can't drive, though.
What'd you have done, Preston?
A knee replacement.
Oh, right off the shelf.
Yep, uh, by all accounts, the surgery was a success and my recovery is doing well, but anyone who's done a knee knows it is what it is.
Excellent. Well, it's now 6 o'clock. We can call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from September 16th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 16th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, majority rules. Minutes are approved. Then we go on to one of our most illustrious topics, citizen comments.
Okay, so on the second Saturday in
Say who you are.
Peter Hutkins, oh yeah, right, I don't know. That's just a voice that more people know than you can say. Second Saturday in December, we take the horses down and do meatball day at Erskine's. We usually do, we've done the family center and we've done the library. So I'll put it, there is work involved besides it takes takes 2 to 3 of us just to take care of the horses. So if you wish to use it as a fundraiser, which you only just take donations, that if you wish to participate and you have the bodies to do it, that is on the table for you.
And that, let me pull up my calendar. That would be the second Saturday, the 13th.
Yep.
So we've got a little time to plan.
Yep, and you should talk to, because work it out with Erskine's too.
I've never attended one of these. What, can you give me the basis?
Oh, the basis of? Oh, well, for a millennium, the Erskines had a meatball day that was a thank you to their customers. And they had it every December. Now, when they first reopened after the pandemic and Erskine's really took a hit in the pandemic, that we brought the horses down in order to do something. And I have a really good, only half terrorizing ride. It's only half terror, but it's pretty good. For a short ride, it gets that full blood going that I really like. Well, compared to sleigh riding, it's a little minor, but it is, I got a pretty good loop through the field and then it drops down at the river. And when it drops down the river, the horses open right up off of First Avenue. And then we pop up underneath the guide wire back on First Avenue, and go back.
That sounds excellent. We will get together and figure out a way
Marketing
to,
people get to work here.
that is true. They're not present currently.
Yes.
Okay, any other citizen comments? Okay. Thank you, Peter. Next, we have a Penrose meeting update. And we did do a Zoom call with Carmen. And it lasted a little over half an hour, and I think it opened up our eyes a little bit to some new topics, if anyone wants to share as well. Any highlights that you gleaned?
You and I were actually talking before we started with and as you said during the meeting, too, it's really nice to hear somebody who actually does this work
Right.
talk about how they actually do it. And to not make it sound as though it's impossible, no one could do this, it's, the difficulties are insurmountable.
Mhm.
She actually made it sound like, of course, this can happen.
Right.
And of course, you talk that way up until the reality of some things, but it was nice to hear somebody who is doing the work talk about that that this might be possible.
So there's something I gleaned from it, and that is this particular company is only interested in owning the building and only renting. And I was not really aware. I'm not too sure if we're searching for that type of situation or if we're looking for a company that can do part ownership, part management. So these are decisions that we need to make.
I personally wouldn't close the door to anything at this point. I guess the thing that I was kind of encouraged by was this is a developer that's been around for 50 years doing this, and all they do is this, what they call mixed income development. They're not like a traditional developer. That's all they do. But I think their model is we do it. We own it. We rent the units and then we manage the property. So that's kind of their business model. And they talked about the tax credits, so they understand the tax credit game and how that works. So I think the only thing that I think is still to be determined is, like everything, they haven't really gone and analyzed that SE group study. They don't really know what the parcel is gonna do in terms of their ability to make it work financially, but she sounded committed to at least digging into a little deeper and then getting back with us to say, this is what we think, this is what we found, and this is what might be next steps. So I felt like, even though it was only a 30-minute meeting, we do have at least some commitment from them to dig a little deeper into what we have and then have a follow-up meeting that will probably give us a little more information. So,
I thought it was interesting that with the tax credits, the other little glimmer of hope was the fact that she said they're really looking for shovel ready. That was a new term. Projects that are ready to go, and that can lead you to the top of the heap. So all the work that we've been doing potentially where it feels like we're not making headway, we are. And it's encouraging to know that you're not just going to get in a queue. If we're ready to go, there's a likely, chance we don't have to wait the 5 years, and that it could be something that could be moved up quicker. That was encouraging.
I also thought it was encouraging because she seemed to be willing, whatever develops, in looking at the study and talking more and then saying, providing kind of a checklist in order to make this more competitive, in order to get it ahead, because they've never been kind of in the dark. We don't know what they're going to be looking for. And for her to kind of summarize, well, these are the things you could get, and these are the things you have to prepare to get them. Because I kind of taken a big swing. The feasibility study is great, but we didn't have sort of an end and feedback from someone who would be looking at it. So I thought that was really interesting.
Good.
Also that it was, rental only. I didn't know if she meant that was for her company or whether in general to get the tax credits, most of the developers are going to want that profile of renting, and then in 15 years they reinvest. Because, I don't know if that's true, then we have to shift a little bit, because I was sort of talking to people about it being potentially a, first home for people and stuff. So I don't know if that's across the board. That was my question, is whether the developers.
Well, the interesting thing too is they don't get involved unless it's a larger number of buildings, right, or units, and so their tipping point is around 60. And certainly as a committee, we're trying to educate the townspeople of developing smaller projects in their backyard, which would be more of a rent or to own, purchase to own, and then dropped into some sort of a formula that would allow it to be sold down the road as affordable housing.
Yeah, so I guess the only thing I'll say, Caroline, is I didn't get the impression that all developers had to do a rental play. That's what this company does, but I don't think that's a requirement. That's my opinion. I can't say that for sure. But the other thing, which is just sort of ancillary to this, is so it'll be interesting to see what these guys say about what they think about the viability of that. But we're also meeting with the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust people, I think in early November. They're gonna walk the site and they're gonna kind of give us their point of view. So we'll have a couple of different points of view from people that are in the business of development. And so either, they'll both be saying, yeah, this is a loser unless you can, get this much infrastructure done before we even look at it, or they'll say something else, or one will say one thing and one will say the other. So I think it'll just be interesting to see, the outcome of what the two developers actually think about that property. Probably gives us a lot of insight into what we might do next.
The more people we can talk to, the better. I mean, there was on VPR, there was a little blurb about this young man who moved back to, I forget what town. I'm gonna have to go on.
Fairleigh.
Fairleigh,
I read
correct.
that article. It's
Yeah.
a bigger article. Yeah.
And he went in and took a family property and converted it to affordable housing. And then he did it again and again. And people are saying, can you come to my town and do it? And he's like, no, I got enough on my plate, but I will, he sounds like he's willing to give information on the path that he took and the mistakes that he made. So I'm going to try to reach out to him and chat with him.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about that article was he's not looking to do big developments. I mean, that's not how he started. He started with infill work. He'll buy a building and renovate it and turn it into, like, he bought a post office, turned it into like 8 apartments. And so and I think some of that infill work could be something that we need. I feel like my opinion is the state is largely ignoring, infill work or work in areas that don't have, municipal water and sewer. So if there is another way to get after that with a guy like this, whatever his formula is, then that could give us another path. It's not just, building 60 units, on a piece of land. So it would be good to.
You use the term infill, and I don't know, for some reason I'm not.
Well, the way I interpreted infill when I read it is, they're not just looking for a blank piece of land to put up something new. They're finding a building.
Mhm.
It's no longer doing what it was intended to do, and they're rehabbing it into apartments.
Okay.
Unless, Jason, do you have a better sort of, you might be better skilled at the definition of infill, but
Well, that sounds good to me. I mean, I've heard the term like gentle infill as another, or incrementalism. And so it's, as opposed to building 60 units like the folks you talked to earlier, this guy Jonah Richards is looking more like, 3, 4, 6, 8 units at a time. And yeah, he's typically buying an old decrepit old building and carving it up into a number of units. And so, it's less threatening, it's easier, neighbors generally are they're more okay with it kind of thing, so. And incidentally, Jonah's gone to, Woodstock has like a housing group, and there's been an Upper Valley housing group, he speaks at many of these things, he's very good. He'd definitely be worth bringing down here and chatting there about.
Do you happen to have his contact info?
I think I do somewhere, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to dig that up.
Thank you. Any other points?
If I can jump in, one thing about infill is that it costs quite a lot of money to lay out water and sewer lines. And you have, like in Chester, certain houses are on 2 acres, 3 acres, even in the village. And so to the extent that you can have ADUs and other uses within the town, as well as using derelict buildings and renovating them, you're making better use of your of your infrastructure. So that's kind of the appeal of infill. I did want to say about Penrose, when the guy from Alpine was with us, he said some companies don't make their profit building the buildings, they make their profit renting them out over time. And that certainly sounded to me like what Penrose was saying was their model. So it's just a decision for us to make. If that's, you might get a little more bang for the buck by not having to raise as much money up front, but it is a different model.
Thank you. All right, that looks like we've hit all the talking points on that meeting, and we'll keep everyone abreast of a follow-up.
I did have a question. I'm sorry I missed the meeting. Are they mostly like a large apartment building type of
I'll send you the link.
And I guess I'm just wondering if that's at odds with what we heard at the, the public outreach that we were doing, where I think most people were inclined for a house or a duplex kind of situation as opposed to a large.
Yeah, you're right about
Rectangle.
that. You're right about that. Yeah.
I don't want to say to
We
count it
didn't-
out based on that, but I do think that's something we should think about.
Yeah, we did ask that question, so we're,
Yeah.
I also do think though that the feedback we received was largely from an older demographic.
Yep.
And from people who are in fact unlikely to live in the housing that they're talking about. And that's a very broad statement, but most of the people that I saw feedback from were talking about what they think other people want. And while I completely understand and agree that most people have if you ask someone, what is it you really want?
Yeah.
They want their own home with the white picket fence and their own lot where they don't see the neighbors, and that's what they want. When you then ask them if they want to pay what that costs.
Correct.
We're in a different place.
Yeah.
So I think there's a middle ground that saying that these would be apartments of some sort doesn't necessarily mean that it's a Manhattan high rise. That there are all sorts of ways to configure 60 units that can look like the townhouses and things that we have.
There's also the possibility of phasing things, so you could have a phase of rentals and a phase of for sales. And a phase for, different incomes, first time buyers, senior citizens who are selling their home locally.
right.
And they want to stay in town, but they don't want to rent, they just want to have their piece of God's green earth, so to speak. So there are different ways of breaking up 60 units, it wouldn't have to just be one big phase, you could do it in different ways.
Right. Yeah, we heard several developers talk about that phasing strategy, and I
Mhm.
think the ones that I heard said they usually start with the rentals to kind of get things going and then provide, operational maintenance of the rental properties, and then they start phasing in for sale properties and other things. I think it was one of the developers that's doing some work up in Middlebury or one of those places is taking that approach.
Okay, we can move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the Fall Festival debrief. Who would like to spearhead that?
I suppose I'll start. I was pretty much all day Saturday, and my attitude was it was worth doing. But in reality, I had maybe 6 Chester residents that I had a thoughtful conversation with. Most of the people at the festival are not residents, and so many would kind of say, "Great, you're doing something. We need it, in our town too," and blah blah. But I just thought it was worth it, but it wasn't like overwhelming.
And I was there for the last 3 hours on Sunday. And similarly, there were, a handful of local residents who came and asked some questions. And it was good to be able to answer the questions for those 3 or 4 people. Mostly I had people who work with housing commissions and committees in other areas who wanted to hear what we were doing. I wanted to be able to, see what we were about and left names for future contact. And I think that kind of networking is useful. Again, it's certainly didn't bring in most of the people there are not from the area, but it was not painful to be there. For the time period. It seemed all right to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Brian had sent us an email to our group that summarized he had 3 or
Yes,
4
he did,
people
yes.
that had, and was it, if I remember correctly, they were elderly or older and they were looking to get out of their bigger houses into something smaller and they just couldn't find anything. Was that
Yeah,
ring
I
a bell?
I think so. When he was there, in the, middle time on Sunday.
Okay.
I think it's great just to have it out there. I think people walk by and they might not have questions, but they're kind of, especially maybe some of the people that are from Chester, they've got kids, they've got stuff to do, they might not be stopping, but again, and with the event at Erskine's is the same thing. I think more people just having someone be aware that this is going on is helpful.
I'm gonna see if I can find his email just to make sure. No, it's not gonna pop up right away. So I think that's a wrap up of the fall festival. We decided it was well worth it and to be out in the public.
Depending on where the fall festival is in the future now.
Wow, yeah. We'll see, I mean, they shouldn't have said anything today. They should have waited until
Right.
2 weeks before they were gonna have their big forum. Because now they're gonna have everybody jumping around asking questions and, yeah, they should have.
Okay, on to item number 5, the Homes for All update.
Yeah, I don't really have anything. I mean, Julie, that was when I put the agenda together on Julie's behalf, that was in the minutes from the previous meeting that would be on the agenda for this meeting. So I don't know whether Julie was going to be hoping to have an update. If she was, she didn't share it. And I don't have an update unless Preston, you have an update.
Well, I was equally puzzled when I saw that on the agenda, but I do have some things I can say. There was something I circulated to by email called the 802 Homes Project that I applied for. And I said, it didn't look like there was any money attached, but I thought, gee, if we could be one of the top 3 towns in the state that got this, it gives us some bragging rights and some exposure. Well, anyway, I submitted the application and we were finalists and we got interviewed, but it really turned out that the state has a catalog of pre-approved designs and they were looking for a quick home run somewhere where they could build one of them. And, our Allard and the water tank property don't fit that category. Kathy Hasbrook really kind of wants to she has her own architect. And so it really just came down to the funeral home property, which we don't even own. So I wasn't surprised when they said, sorry, you're not selected. But we had a pleasant conversation. The other thing that I'll just tell you is that we are applying for a municipal planning grant to update our town plan because it's time to update it. But lo and behold, what is it the state wants the focus to be? It's housing and flood resiliency. So, of course, through the town plan update, we're going to be talking a lot about housing too. And then on top of it all, and this was Jason's initiative, there is a class at UVM that has selected us. Some students will develop a community survey and engagement event with housing, and we'll see what they come up with. I sent you a link, or I asked them to send you a link, Hugh, so you could join me on Friday while we get the first interview from the students to find out what's going on in Chester. But anyway, and they've even said a partnership could continue with them providing an intern. So there's things out there.
Thank you. So any other questions on home sprawl?
I think we should just carry that forward to the next agenda because Julie may have some updates, but she
Okay.
wasn't here today.
Fair enough. On to new business. Anyone would like to share ideas for the next meeting? I think we're putting down in the notes that I'm sending the materials to Penrose again. And we're gonna work together to figure out an idea for fundraising for December 13th.
All you gotta do is just collect donations and load people on and off.
Okay,
That's pretty much the gist of it.
Donations for the
You-
housing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so donations are not, is Erskine's doing additionally any donation, but they just giving, are they still doing, just giving like?
Just giving away free meatballs,
Okay.
you know? I know, it's a wonder, well, for those of us, I spend thousands of dollars a year there, so it's like, yeah, I'll get my free meatballs. If I'm really lucky, I get in there long enough to get a couple cookies. That's about as far, it's usually, we're pretty busy,
It's the 13th.
13th.
That's pretty.
It is.
thank you.
Well, I don't know, you may think there's a certain amount of terror, it's set up perfectly as far as I'm concerned. When I get the old people off and we're not going it again, and then I get the pile of kids that just can't not go again.
Okay, any other new business?
I'll follow up with the Jonah Richards contact info, and there's another guy, Kevin Purcell out of Lebanon, who's expressed some casual interest in doing a project down this way, so I may send you a few of these contacts. We can talk about possibly inviting them down for conversation or something.
Great.
We should have an update by the next meeting on whatever Wyndham and Windsor. Because I think that meeting is like the 5th of November. They're coming down to see Julie and probably Preston and I. Preston's back on his feet, and we're gonna tromp around the water tower property and so they can assess it.
What date was that?
I don't have it on the top of my
Okay.
head, but I think it's in the first week in November.
Okay,
An update.
Yeah, we'll have an
November
update,
meeting.
yeah.
okay. That's a check on our last item, which is new business. And does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
that. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.